My, oh my, oh my. Now, the Washington football team made an offer for Russell Wilson. Excuse me, I say the Washington Commanders at this point. Still getting used to that, folks. They made an offer for Russell Wilson. They offered 2 first-round picks. Obviously, Denver, needing to be more aggressive because they're not in the NFC East, went out and got Russell Wilson. So that left the Washington Commanders with Carson Wentz. I almost said the Washington football team again. I'm just so used to it. The Commanders went out and they got the dude that killed them in the NFC East for 5 years when he was with my Philadelphia Eagles, Carson Wentz. And now we're going to get Carson Wentz versus Jalen Hurts 2 times a year. Unfortunately for Wentz, I have to admit, last year, I thought Carson Wentz was this missing piece for the Indianapolis Colts. I saw they had a running back at Jonathan Taylor. I really like the receiving core in Michael Pittman and T.Y. Hilton. I like Jack Doyle at tight end. I love their offensive line, led by probably the best guard in football in Quinn Nelson, and their defense was absolutely amazing with Darius Leonard and defensive back Kenny Moore taking the football away. All of that was true, except Carson Wentz did not live up to his billing. I thought Carson Wentz, with a fresh start, with Frank Reich back as his head coach and his play caller, I thought Carson Wentz would return back to his 2017 self, and he somewhat did. He threw 27 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. The difference is 6 of those 7 interceptions happened in crunch time, in game-winning situations, and Wentz cost the Colts a lot of his games. Not to mention now, this is the second report. There was a report in Philadelphia, and now there's a report coming out of Indianapolis that Wentz is stubborn and that he is hard to coach. And when you add that, and when we've seen the wild, reckless play that Carson Wentz has had throughout his last couple years, ever since Jadeveon Clowney hit him in the head in that wild card playoff game in January 2020 when he was still an Eagle against the Seattle Seahawks, after he carried the likes of J.J. Arcega-Whiteside and Greg Ward and Miles Sanders to the NFL playoffs, did Carson Wentz. Ever since then, he has not been the same. And if Frank Reich and Chris Ballard and Jim Irsay and a stable organization like the Indianapolis Colts could not fix Carson Wentz, then what do you think is going to happen when he goes to dysfunctional Washington with a defensive-minded coach in Ron Rivera who still wants to run the football? And by the way, yes, he's an upgrade over Taylor Heinicke. He, without a doubt, is. He's going to take care of the football, but so did Taylor Heinicke. And Washington doesn't have nearly the offensive line the Colts did. They nearly do not have the secondary the Colts did to take the football away. While they do arguably have a better defensive line, they did not play like it for most of last season. And Antonio Gibson, even though he's a good running back, he is no Jonathan Taylor. I give you Terry McLaurin as an upgrade over Michael Pittman, but as a unit, as a whole, I like Logan as the tight end, but they don't have a lot of skill positions out there. And I think the pressure of him going back to Philadelphia is going to get to Wentz. And clearly the report out there is he's not a great teammate. He makes buddies in the locker room. Those are the only guys he talks to, mostly on the offensive side of the football. Reports are he was complaining during the Eagles Super Bowl run that people forgot about him. And then obviously the fact that he was immune to hard coaching in Philly and in Indianapolis. Well, Ron Rivera is a tough-nosed defensive coach. I do not think this is the best fit for Carson, especially in a dysfunctional organization like the Commanders are. I still think that they are now the third best team in the NFC East behind Dallas and Philadelphia. I project Jalen Hurts to project up. I think Jalen Hurts is going to have a really good year. This is the caveat that Howie Roseman and the Philadelphia Eagles actually surround Hurts with weapons. Right now, and I can't believe I'm saying this because a couple of years ago, I thought Carson Wentz was a top 5 quarterback in the National Football League, especially after his MVP season. And ever since he carried that Eagles team to the playoffs in 2019, he has really fallen off a cliff. And sometimes when you fall off a cliff, you cannot recover. This is really bad luck for Wentz. He's on his third team in 3 years. And unfortunately for him, as much as I loved him as a Philadelphia Eagle, as much as I loved him coming out of college, I must say, man, I am out on Carson Wentz. I think he's going to struggle in Washington. I think it's a big downgrade for you to go from Russell Wilson to Carson Wentz, and the fact that they swapped second-round picks and the fact that Indy picked up an extra third-round pick. Absolutely. I think Indy is going to win this deal. I think Indy could still get Jimmy Garoppolo. They could still get Mitch Trubisky. They could still compete in that AFC South with Tennessee and in the AFC for a wild card spot. And I think the Commanders are not going to make the playoffs in 2022. And Wentz will be on his fourth team in 4 years in 2023.